Hey guys, Becky here with Design Bundles, and I'm super excited to have you join me today because regardless of what cutting machine you have, we are going to show you how to apply heat transfer vinyl with your home iron. All right guys, so let me show you what I'm working with here. Now, this is a Cricut pressing mat. All right, so don't let that fool you. The only reason I put this down is because I need to protect my workspace below, but you can just as easily do this on a heat safe surface, usually your kitchen counter, if you have like granite countertops, if you have a tile floor, anything like that. For the most part, you don't have to worry about the heat. What you don't want to use is going to be an ironing board or something that has a soft surface that is not going to allow you to get a whole lot of pressure. And we'll talk some more about that after a while. But I have this protective mat here. I have our little zipper bag. This is just what we're working with today. They're really cheap and inexpensive. Then I have my heat transfer vinyl that I have already cut, and I will show you some more about that also. And then the star of the show is this home iron. Now, there's nothing special about this iron. I picked it up at the local store for about $15. Absolutely nothing special about it. Now, you do not have to buy a special iron. If you already have one in your house, then by all means, go ahead and use it. If you can, make sure that you have turned off the steam setting, or go ahead and make sure you've emptied all the water out. So I'm just going to open this. This one actually has not been used. I got this specially for you guys. So the one advantage to buying a new iron is that this one has never had water in it. And I was able, what I liked about this one is to go ahead and get one with a retractable cord. So that makes it really easy. Okay, so before we get into talking about the heat transfer vinyl, I have plugged this in, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look at my dial, and I want to turn it to be somewhere what I'm going to call the medium range. You don't want it too high. There used to be a lot of information out saying that you wanted to go with the highest setting, and that is not true. The highest setting is actually usually too high. So I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to set it off to the side so that it can be heating up. And then let me tell you about this guy. I got this guy on Amazon. This is a laser infrared thermometer. Okay, now when I turn it on, I get a red laser. I don't know if you can see it there on my mat, but what this does is it allows me to measure the temperature. So this was about $17. So even between this, even if you have to purchase an iron, you're looking at under $35 to be able to try to get as close as you can to using a heat press or an easy press. So while this heats up, one last piece of information is you will want some sort of barrier sheet. Now this is a Teflon sheet. You can get them on Amazon. You can buy a 5-pack for about $10. You can usually also get them if you have any local vinyl shops near you. If you do not have anything like that handy and you are just ready to get started, you can also use butcher paper, you can use uncoated parchment paper, and some people even use copy paper. So definitely a lot of options. Just make sure it's a very thin barrier, okay? Now, I'm assuming that this may be one of your first projects with heat transfer vinyl. So let's talk about heat transfer vinyl. This is the glossy side, and this is the matte side. The glossy side is your clear carrier sheet, and this side is what's going to go against your cutting mat. So in your software, whether you're using a Silhouette, whether you're using a Cricut, a Scan and Cut, anything along those lines, you are going to cut into the back, into the matte side. You do not want to cut through your shiny carrier sheet. So on the mat, you will put this face down, and then in your software, you will mirror your design. And when I talk about mirror, that means you are going to flip it so that the text reads backwards. Now, there are a lot of different manufacturers for heat transfer vinyl. So you can see I performed a test cut up here just to make sure that my settings were accurate. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and weed. I use weeding tweezers. And what I'm going to do is just pierce underneath one corner. You can see I can pull it back. Now, if you ever have any doubts about whether you're using HTV or whether you're using adhesive vinyl, HTV is not sticky. Now, the masking, the carrier sheet itself is usually sticky. Okay, so the carrier sheet is the clear part. It is sticky. The heat transfer vinyl is not. Okay, whereas if you're using adhesive vinyl, that would be the opposite, and most adhesive vinyl does not have a clear carrier sheet anyway. But as you can see, this is just regular smooth heat transfer vinyl, and you shouldn't have any major problems weeding it. If you do have a lot of problems weeding it, then that is usually an indicator that your cut settings are not correct for the material that you're cutting. So what you want to do is you are removing everything that you don't need. I start by removing the largest pieces, and then I come in here and get the insides of all of my letters. Now, we do have a video on different types of heat transfer vinyl, so make sure you check that out if you are new to the heat transfer vinyl world. Now, weeding heat transfer vinyl can be a little difficult, especially if you have a hard time seeing the cut lines. Now, a lot of crafters, when they first start out, they will invest in a light box, a weeding box, and some people really claim that that makes a big difference for them. Anytime that I have a problem seeing cut lines, I will actually break out some sort of powder. Cocoa powder is really useful if you're using a light heat transfer vinyl. And baby powder is useful if you're using a dark heat transfer vinyl, but you can also substitute in if you have any mica powders or if you have any eyeshadow or anything along those lines. And what you're going to do is you can actually just rub that powder onto the back of your HTV, and it will get caught in the cut lines for you. Now, when I'm done, I like to flip it over and really give it a good look, make sure that all of my pieces have been weeded out, because once you press it on there, I don't want to say it's too late, because it's not, but it is definitely a lot more difficult. So let's set these to the side and let's check on our iron. I'm going to turn my iron around here. I can feel that it's pretty toasty. I'm just going to use my laser, and it's telling me that my iron is only at 115 degrees. So your temperature will be determined by the manufacturer of your heat transfer vinyl. And for the most part, you're looking at a temperature between 300 and 320 degrees. And your pressing time will usually be around 15 seconds. So I'm just going to keep checking the temperature on my iron as it increases, so that once I find a good temperature for this iron, then I will be able to mark that with a Sharpie or some other indicator so that I know where the sweet spot is for me. Now remember that every iron will be different, so I will definitely tell you what my setting turned out to be, but I do strongly suggest for everybody to invest in one of these. They are very, very useful. And they're also useful once you do upgrade to a heat press, so that you can keep an eye and make sure that your heat press is heating consistently. All right, guys, so let me tell you one thing that was going on here, because I was talking to you about checking the temperature on your home iron, and I noticed that this has a shiny side, and I'm not sure if that has any bearing or not, but when I was attempting to take the temperature, it was only registering about 125 degrees. So instead, what I did was I went ahead and turned on my laser thermometer here, and I held the press down. You can actually do this during your pre-press step if you want, or if you just want to grab something like a tea towel or a spare t-shirt. And I'm going to hold it here for about 15 seconds, and then I'm actually going to measure the temperature underneath. Okay, so my temperature is 295, whereas the temperature on the surface of my iron is only registering 113. Okay, so with that being said, I am just about set on the silk/wool setting on this dial. So that might give you a starting point. What I want to do is I do want to go ahead and give my item a pre-press. This is just going to make sure that I don't have any wrinkles, and then it will also release any excess moisture from the material. Now I can position my heat transfer vinyl that I've cut and weeded. cover it again. Now, I cannot stress to you enough how important pressure is. Pressure is, besides temperature, I would say single most important factor when pressing your heat transfer vinyl. So that is also why we talked about not needing a ironing board or a soft surface underneath. And I'm not going to move this around like an iron. I'm holding it in place and I'm mentally counting to 15 seconds because I want to make sure that I'm getting a nice press throughout my entire design. So that will be the only frustrating part using a home iron, is that you will have to move and press and move and press and move and press. So it can definitely be beneficial for you to start out with smaller projects such as this one that I only have to press twice. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently lift from one side and make sure that my heat transfer vinyl is fully adhered. There we go. I can toss the carrier sheet and let me show you. Now, I'm not sure if you can tell or not, but I personally can look at this and tell that this vinyl is sitting right on top of my project. So what I need to do, I need to get more pressure behind that. My ultimate goal is for all of my heat transfer vinyl projects, I want to be able to look at the finished project and see the weave of the fabric in my heat transfer vinyl. That's how I know that I have enough pressure. Now that can be hard to do with an iron, especially if you're working on a taller surface like a table or a countertop. When I first started with heat transfer vinyl and an iron, I really took it seriously and I got down literally on my hands and knees on my tile floor and used a significant amount of my body weight to apply pressure. Now, I'm not saying that you need to go to that extreme, but that is the example that I use with anybody who comes into my vinyl store asking about using a home iron. If you have something like an end table or you have a bar stool, those are a pretty good height to allow you to fully put the iron under your body weight to make sure that you're getting adequate pressure. Much better. So I'm not sure how well the camera will pick up, but especially throughout these larger letters, I can really tell the texture of the fabric is showing through the heat transfer vinyl. So I would call that a success, especially since this is not an item that I'm going to wash on a daily basis. But just to give you a heads up, if you were to throw this in the washer and the vinyl were to peel or just not fully adhere, then that again is going to circle back around to the pressure issue. So anytime you have heat transfer vinyl and anything happens during the wash or the vinyl starts to peel, that is the first recommendation that I make, is that it's going to be coming back to the amount of pressure that you're able to apply using either a home iron. You have the same problem with a Cricut Easy Press because those are pretty reliant on you to apply the pressure also. But as you can see, it can be done, absolutely. And a lot of times it's even beneficial to tack your design down with an iron, even if you have a regular heat press, because it's easier out in the open to position your heat transfer vinyl design. So lots of very good reasons why you would want to learn how to use a home iron with your heat transfer vinyl. So I wanted to take a minute and demonstrate for you what I'm talking about getting the right amount of pressure and different stances that you can take. Now, I unfortunately do not have a low surface here with me to really demonstrate that part of it, but let me just show you from a front example of what it's gonna look like when you're applying this heat transfer vinyl. So this is our Teflon sheet. Like I said, you can use a couple different types of sheets to cover and just make sure that it's protected. This is going to protect your iron and also protect your project. And then you will take your iron and you will put it on top. Now remember, we're not going to move it around. We're not going to do anything like that. And then what we're talking about with putting pressure is, what I find easiest to do is we're talking about body weight. Okay, so if you can find a comfortable position to where for about 15 to 20 second intervals, you can position your iron and then really put your body weight on top of it and make sure that you're using both a heat safe and a hard surface, because you're really going to get a lot of good results. If you do not have something like a granite countertop or a bar stool or a tile floor, you can actually buy tiles from the hardware store, and those work really, really good because they also give you a little bit of heat conductivity from the back. So really, really great. Really, really love it. So you're going to move it around. Now guys, the reason I talk about a low surface is because if this were a nightstand or an end table, then literally all you would do is position and you'd be able to rock your body weight on top of it very effortlessly. So just a few tips for being able to apply body pressure effectively without having to put a lot of strain on yourself and your body. So guys, how did you feel about our project today? Of course, like I said, I really love these zipper bags, so I knew that they were the absolute perfect project to show you using a home iron, and they're small enough that tackling this project as your first project is not overwhelming. So I really love it. Like I said, this is just regular smooth heat transfer vinyl, but we do have a video to introduce you to all different types. So I'll make sure to link that in the description for you below. But guys, if you have any questions, we are here for you. I am ready to hear all the questions you have about heat transfer vinyl or about using a home iron. I really love to hear from you guys. If there are any other videos that you want to see, make sure you leave all that down there in the comments below. And guys, make sure you take time, if you don't mind, to give us that quick subscribe, maybe turn on notifications or share with a crafty friend, okay? Maybe you know another beginner who needs help introducing heat transfer vinyl with a home iron. And guys, I just really, really appreciate it. I appreciate all the support that you show for the channel. It really means a lot to me and it helps us to keep bringing you these awesome videos in the future. So I'm gonna wrap it up today, but thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.